This doesn't meet our needs at this time. Kind of riding the X-Files wave without so much as a buy your leave. Hi, I'm Sock Marionette, doing business as Bargain Counter Argument, and I'm a middle-aged lady in a tiara, counting down to Valentine's Day. This is February 9th, which makes it day 9. I think that's where we are in life. Yes, that's where we are in the calendar and in life. There's a lot of snow on the ground. It's very sunny. The sky is bright blue. I don't see any clouds at all. So it's beautiful to look at, but I don't really want to go out driving in it. And it's kind of on the cold side, and we're supposed to get a little bit warmer temperatures in the middle of the week. So I'm not going out of the house to do errands today. I didn't get an earworm this morning. I slept for about 11 hours and it was a good reset. I still woke up this morning feeling kind of groggy and tired, but I was groggy and tired because I got a lot of sleep as opposed to being groggy and tired because I didn't get a lot of sleep. Anyway, so I kind of got off to a slow start. I think it's like after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have already read my meet cute story, at least. Today's story was The Dictionary of You and Me by Jennifer L. Armentrout. And this is what the paper looked like. And this story was a kind of it was a fun little story where you had, yeah. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's a spoiler, but it was a fun story. It was set in a library. And I enjoyed it a lot. I don't think it's my favorite of this collection yet, but who knows? I'm gonna wait until the end to share a favorite. Now, I have been kind of courting burnout a little bit, so I've decided to work smarter rather than harder. And you've noticed in the last couple of videos, I did not do the introducing the book, talking about the book midway through, and then talking about it at the end. I think that works a little bit more smoothly. So I'm gonna keep on doing that, where I just don't do that midway through the book clip. So, so that's what I'm going to do today with this book, Sullivan's Woman by Nora Roberts. And this is the copy that I have. I think I probably found it at a library sale. It's a silhouette romance from 1984. It's a reprint. I used the original silhouette cover for the thumbnail, so if you want to look at that, you can. So, before I read the summary, hopefully I remember to do that this time, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of silhouette. Silhouette Romances was a division of Simon & Schuster at first. It was founded in 1980. What had happened was Harlequin was reprinting Mills & Boon very successfully, and I think, I don't know if Harlequin occasionally would contract with authors more directly and just put them directly into Harlequin, or I'm not sure exactly how that worked. But most of their writers were English. Most of the writers were from the UK, and of those writers from the UK, most of them were from England specifically. They did have some Commonwealth authors. I'm not sure when they started publishing Canadians, but they had some Australians, like Margaret Way, who for February is the author for Sarah, a reading category romance. She kind of does a little book club, and instead of picking a title, she just picks an author. And for this month, February, and her channel is linked in the description below because she's also doing her own thing for the Countdown to Valentines Day. She is, the spotlight author is Margaret Way, who was Australian. And there were other Australian writers. I think Robin Donald was New Zealander, and Jane Balling was from South Africa. Rosemary Carter was from Zimbabwe, or Rhodesia as was. So you had, they were drawing from talent around the Commonwealth, but they didn't really use US writers. In fact, Nora Roberts herself started writing in 1979, and she submitted a couple of manuscripts to Harlequin, and she said her first rejection letters, her first 2 rejection letters were just like form letters, just like, thank you for your submission. This doesn't meet our needs at this time, you know, feel free to resubmit whenever. And she said she finally got a more personal rejection letter, and what it said was, this is a very promising story and you're a good writer, but we already have an American writer. And that was Janet Daly, which, of course, later on, Janet Daly would be caught plagiarizing from Nora Roberts. but that was much further in the future. And it was kind of like a lot, and Nora Roberts was emblematic of a lot of writers who were Americans who had started reading Harlequin and really enjoyed it and thought, oh, I want to try that myself, and getting rejections because they were American and Harlequin didn't publish American writers. I'm getting this, some of this is actually on Nora Roberts' Wikipedia page if you want to read like what she specifically said about it. I was actually also reading about it in this book, which is A Natural History of the Romance Novel by Pamela Regis. And then this chapter 15 is called Harlequin Silhouette and the Americanization of the Popular Romance Novel. And it talks about the situation with Nora Roberts getting rejected because she was American. Well, so basically what you had was you had a lot of really good manuscripts kicking around and a lot of people who were good writers and eager to write. And we're going to be focused solely on romance as opposed to trying to do different kinds of writing all the time. And other professional writers who did other kinds of writing who wanted to write romance as well. You had all of these manuscripts kicking around. These things were good manuscripts by good writers who were eager to write romance. And so Simon and Schuster started Silhouette Books, which was their romance line. And so they started in 1980 publishing American writers, and one of whom was Nora Roberts. And there were others as well. And eventually in 1984, Harlequin was just got... At that point, Harlequin pretty much got its clock cleaned in the market by Silhouette. So in 1984, Harlequin bought Silhouette, but continued to just keep the same personnel in place. And those lines continued into the 90s. And they added more, took them away, and so on. There was, besides just Silhouette Romance, there was Silhouette Intimate Moments and Silhouette Desire, and those were kind of more spicy. They had, for a while, they had Silhouette Shadow, which was kind of paranormal, kind of riding the X-Files wave. That was of that era. And eventually, Harlequin phased out Silhouette. But they did occasionally publish their back catalog, especially for writers like Nora Roberts, in formats like this, or in 2 or 3 books in a single volume, just to kind of monetize that back catalog that was just sitting around not doing anything. So that was Silhouette. So this book is from 1984, as I said, and as you can see, they started off, when Silhouette started, their covers were just basically white, and they had the oval picture, kind of like an imitation of Harlequin Presents. By the time Sullivan's Women was published in 1984, the same year that they were acquired by Harlequin, you can see from the thumbnail and the picture in the thumbnail that they still had the oval background, but that the border had turned purple. And so I don't remember when that happened. I think it happened before the acquisition by Harlequin, but I'm not sure. They also had the purple, that same shade of purple was used on a special edition, which was another line of silhouettes. Maybe when I come back to talk about this book, I will talk about, I'll show my copies. I don't know what happened there. Okay, a little scatterbrained. Speaking of being scatterbrained, I forgot to mention Kristin Lee of the Neverending TBR in Kristin's Corner, who is reading a short story from Meet Cute every day, and she's recording a quick YouTube short about it. So link in the description. And okay. Let's see if I can get my act together long enough to read the back of the book for the summary. As you can see, this is a nice cover. It is set in San Francisco. He loomed out of the fog like some mythic figure, but Cassidy St. John soon discovered Colin Sullivan was flesh and blood, and all man. He had fame, wealth, charisma, and a reputation with the ladies. Yet from the moment Colin focused his mesmerizing attention on Cass, she was torn between prudence and the irresistible desire to be reckless with her heart. Colin was unaccustomed to refusal, particularly from women, yet Cass intrigued him as no other woman ever had. She had spirit, beauty, but it was her innocence that drove him to hold her. She had spirit, beauty, but it was her innocence that drove him to hold back and, for once in his life, not simply take what he wanted. No, it would require more subtlety, patience, tenderness than he'd ever shown to make her Sullivan's woman. Okay, so that was my all over the place first clip of the day. and I'm going to step away from the camera, probably for the best, really, and edit this clip and read this book. Okay, I'm back. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon, and I finished A Sullivan's Woman by Nora Roberts, and I knew this took place in San Francisco. I did not know that Sullivan was an artist who hires Cassidy, the female main character, to be his model, which gives it even more continuity. Breathless Surrender also took place in San Francisco and also, to a degree, involved art and artists. This was much more about art and artists, and also much more about San Francisco. San Francisco was a distant backdrop to this story. I think it could have just as easily taken place in any major North American city. This one had more local color. It was interesting because it was pretty good, because it actually reminded me of, this was published in 1984, and they're in San Francisco. It's a pretty good description of 1980s San Francisco, because I actually spent an afternoon in and around Fisherman's Wharf, which does figure into this story, in the summer of 1984. And I kind of recognized that specific part of San Francisco, and I recognized the overall description of San Francisco from time that I spent there in the 80s and into the 90s. So that was pretty good. I don't know that these descriptions of San Francisco would hold up today necessarily, but I think they're good for that time. I fairly much enjoyed this book. However, he's an artist, and when it says he looms up out of the fog at her, this is very true. She's in the fog near Fisherman's Wharf, but there aren't a lot of people around, and he comes up and he starts like tilting her face this way and that, like physically touching her without so much as a by your leave. And it's because we find out it's because he's an artist and he's looking at her, and he decides that her face is like the next thing he wants to paint. And so they go for coffee, and he makes his pitch. And she later finds out that he's actually a really famous artist. And, but still, it was kind of like, I mean, it was presented as though this was over the top, but basically cute behavior, as opposed to being kind of menacing. And later, when she tries to tell him, you know, that was pretty menacing, he's like, pish posh. And it's like, okay, dude, whatever. It was one of those where I found myself rewriting it. As I was reading it, I found myself rewriting it as a dark romance. And it was like, oh, I wonder if there are any good dark romances about an artist and their subject, the artist and the model. If there are, and you know of them, please let me know in the comments. I would love to read that story. So it ended up being pretty good. I think there's some stuff that I think maybe Nora Roberts would have done differently if she were writing this today. So yeah, there is that. But it did kind of whet my appetite, and I seem to recall in my earlier clip talking about showing a cover from a Silhouette special edition book, so you can see the purple and everything. I mean, it's in the thumbnail too, but for this book. But this is the special edition I had picked out for this project, and it is also by Nora Roberts, and it is called One Man's Art. And this is from 1985, so a year after this was published. And like I said, it's a Silhouette special edition, which makes it a little bit longer. And I don't know exactly how Silhouette special edition and Harlequin special edition, how that exactly works. If they just folded the special edition when they decided to stop using Silhouette as an imprint, if they just renamed it, or if there's a slight difference or whatever. This is about 250 pages long. I'm bringing this one up partially to show you like the OG cover here, and also because since I finished this book, I'm kind of like ready for more Nora Roberts 1980s category. So I'm going to read this for tomorrow, and I think I'm actually going to start it tonight, maybe even finish this tonight, which will make tomorrow's video very smooth, which is a good idea in more than one way, because I also need to do some errands tomorrow. There's some grocery store stuff and some library stuff and some drugstore stuff, all that kind of thing. So yeah, so preview of coming attractions. Meanwhile, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, share, subscribe, or don't. I'm not the boss of you. And I hope you have a good day or night.